long to see the day that Roe versus Wade is consigned to the ash heap of history where it belongs. A Trump-Pence administration will defund Planned Parenthood.
In 1873, 63 years after the government's ban on abortion, the Federal Comstock Act was put into place. Named for Anthony Comstock, a social reformer of the late 19th century known for his hatred of obscenity, the Comstock Act forbade the possession, distribution, and even information of devices or medications for abortions or contraceptions. He called them immoral and obscene.
In 1916, Brooklyn, New York, Margaret Sanger opened the first birth control and abortion clinic. Abortion was made illegal in 1803 by Britain's statute. Despite the abortions being illegal, Margaret Sanger wanted to voice what she believed.
There was a certain satisfaction in doing something that was going to alleviate the sufferings of women in particular, and I was quite a feminist at the time.
Obviously.
And yes, and I naturally didn't want to see women take all the suffering of childbearing and of pregnancies. So it was a pleasure, in a sense, to think that you were striking at an archaic law, which it was. It was put on the statute books by Anthony Comstock some years ago, and no one had stood up against it. No one had tried to change the laws. And at that time, not even a doctor had a right to use the United States mails and common carriers for books, for learning, for anything that he had to do with this question. It was considered obscene.
With Donald Trump's election in 2016, a main goal of his vice president, Mike Pence, has been to defund Planned Parenthood. The idea behind this proposal is to make abortion inaccessible, but pulling federal funding from an organization that over 50% of women consider their main source of health care will also take away necessary health services, including STD testing and treatment, birth control, and cancer screenings.
People who are on Medicaid will definitely be affected because there's not very many people in this county who take Medicaid. And the people who take Medicaid already are super full. They don't have the capacity to specialize in sexual health care. Planned Parenthood, that's what they do. They don't try to specialize in all care. They specialize in reproductive sexual health care. Marin community clinics are the service providers that come onto campus to provide sexual health services. So what they provide is access to a good amount of birth control, so birth control pill, patch, ring, shot, methods, sexually transmitted infection testing, so gonorrhea, chlamydia, HIV, and syphilis, emergency contraception, so most people know that as morning after pill or Plan B, condoms, lube, they check for UTIs or yeast infections or bacterial vaginosis. They provide treatment for that as well, which is usually antibiotics. So Planned Parenthood provides all of that, and then on top of that, Planned Parenthood does offer pregnancy termination and does have a relationship with an adoption agency, so people who want to make an adoption plan can access those services. They offer vaccinations, so HPV vaccine is really big to prevent HPV. People can get a wider range of testing if need be for STIs, which can include hepatitis. They can do pap smears So that's to test for cervical cancer, and they can also do herpes testing. And I think they provide treatment for all of those as well, or medication. So there's two other parts that Planned Parenthood does, is education and advocacy. So the advocacy part is what Planned Parenthood is really known for. They do a lot of political work locally and over in Washington, D.C. to help continue support reproductive health laws. In the education, that's what I used to do as a health educator. Any type of sex ed, middle school, high schools, colleges, trainings, parent workshops, community workshops, anything to help educate people around how to stay safe and how to be healthy and make healthy decisions. They're one of the only providers that specialize in sexual health care that takes Medicaid. And if Planned Parenthood goes away, it's going to be really hard for people who are on Medicaid or who are middle class, who use their sliding scale fees to get health care. They may postpone their pap smear for months because the community clinics are booked months in advance for other things, because they do all types of health care. So I think that it would really affect them. I know people who use the community clinics, and just to get an appointment for non-emergent, you're weeks, if not months, booked out. So it may prevent people from getting breast cancer checks or, pap smear checks. And those are, or even just birth control. They may not be consistent with getting access to their birth control because it may take them a while to get an appointment.